Hello and welcome to the I Am Mom Summit. I feel really honored to be able to speak this year on one of my very favorite topics. My name is Monica Tanner. I am the wife to a very hunky man, the boss mom of 4 small humans, and a weekly podcaster at On the Brighter Side. I love to create summits and digital courses on topics that I feel passionate about. So today I have the opportunity to talk about how to change your marriage without having to change your spouse, which is something I get really excited to talk about. Now, whether you are in the marriage of your dreams or whether your marriage is really struggling or anywhere in between, there's always room for improvement. Now, I hear lots of people say, well, my marriage would be so much better if my spouse would just help out around the house more, or help with the kids, or call when he was going to be late, or plan a date night every once in a while. And it's easy to think that way. But what if I could tell you with 100% confidence that I can help you improve and strengthen your marriage without having to involve your spouse at all. In order to do that, you have to accept 3 important principles. The first one is that the only person you can control is you. The second one is that you are 100% in control of your own experience in your marriage or your life. And number 3 is that your spouse's only job is to be themselves. If you can accept and really believe those 3 principles, then you will have the power to change your marriage without changing your spouse. So once you accept those 3 principles as truth, here are some tips, tricks, and tools to help you improve your marriage. Number 1 is to look for the good. Now, this has 2 parts. Your brain is really good at finding whatever it is you give it to look for. Now, have you ever tried this exercise? You walk into a room and you look for everything that's red. And then you leave the room and someone asks you about all the things that are white. You're going to have trouble naming off the things that are white because you were looking for the things that were red. This same principle applies to your life. You are going to find whatever it is that you're looking for. So what I like to do is to start every day by looking for the good. Now, I've been married for 18 years, and every morning, unless one of us is traveling, my husband and I start the day with morning snuggles, which means when one of us wakes up, we roll over and snuggle the other one. I love to take this time to start my day off thinking about all the reasons why I'm grateful for my spouse, my marriage, my children, and my life. That way, I start the day off with intention, setting my brain up to look for things to be grateful for. The second way that I look for the good is giving my brain really good problems to solve. Now, your brain's one of its most important jobs is to solve problems, and it's really good at it. However, left unchecked, your brain will look for problems that aren't really problems to solve. So have you ever been walking around your house and you're like, I really hate how small my laundry room is, or I'd love to just redo this whole living room. It's so ugly. Or why don't my friends ever call me? Those are the types of problems that your brain are going to come up with if left unchecked that don't really serve you. So why not give your brain intentionally problems to solve that are going to really make your life better? For example, how can I feel more connected to my spouse today? Or what's something I can do for each one of my children to show them how much I love them today? Or who can I reach out to that I can serve today? Those types of problems are going to get way better results than if you leave your brain on autopilot. Now, giving your brain really good problems to solve includes things like, man, I really struggle to get dinner on the table and the kitchen cleaned up by the time my kids come home from school and my husband comes home. It's a busy time and I'm having a really hard time getting that done. Now, you could decide to think, if only my spouse would just come home from work and pitch in and help out how I would be able to get all this stuff done. Or you could completely release them from that expectation and say, you know what? My spouse is tired when he comes home from work. He's not going to help me in the kitchen. What are some other creative ways I can solve this problem for myself? And then you open yourself up to all these different solutions that are a little bit more creative, like I have kids that can help me with dinner and the dishes, or there is a neighbor girl who needs to earn a little bit extra money. Maybe I could hire her for an hour in the afternoons after school to come over and help prep dinner and do the dishes. So there's all types of ways that you can solve that problem for yourself. And usually if you're expecting your spouse to solve that problem, you're going to just stay stuck. But if you release them from having to do anything, you'll come up with all kinds of solutions for that. Give your brain that problem to solve, and it will. That's number one. Look for the good, find ways to be grateful, and give your brain good problems to solve. My second tip is to write your story the way you want it to read. Okay, there are an infinite number of ways that you can tell your story about any given circumstance. So when you're thinking about your marriage, the first thing I'm going to have you do is what's called a thought download. You're going to get out a pen and a piece of paper, and you're going to set a timer for 4 to 5 minutes, and then you're just going to dump every thought you have in your brain about your marriage down onto that paper. Don't judge. Don't edit. Don't worry about spelling or punctuation. You're just going to take all the thoughts in your brain and dump them out onto that piece of paper so you can look at them. Now, take a look at the theme. Figure out what that story is about. I like to give it a headline. So if you were to see that story written up in a magazine or a newspaper article, what would the headline read? What would catch your attention? Once you've done that, examine it and decide, is this the story I want to tell about my marriage? Ask yourself 2 important questions. First, am I proud to be the heroine of this story? And 2, does it make me show up in my marriage in a way that I would like to? So we can take any given circumstance, we can take the same circumstance, and we can write 2 completely different stories about it. So the circumstance is this. You're a young mom, you've got small kids at home, your sink gets clogged, and your dishwasher is broken, and your husband is at work. There's 2 ways that you can tell that story. One way is that you're helpless. You don't know how to unclog the sink. You don't know what to do about the dishwasher. You're exhausted. Your kids are driving you crazy. How does that story make you show up? Well, when your husband comes home from work, you're going to pounce on him probably and tell him all the things that went wrong that day. The dishwasher is broken. The sink is clogged. The kids are driving me crazy. I need your help. The second way you could tell that story is from a place of being capable and confident and able to solve those problems on your own. If you tell yourself that you are capable and confident and you can solve these problems, it might make you show up in a way that you think, I can maybe look up a YouTube video on how to unclog the sink. Maybe I can call dishwasher repairmen and find out who can come out the soonest for the best price. And then when your husband gets home, you'll be so excited to see him. Honey, welcome home. Guess what? Today was crazy. The sink got clogged, the dishwasher was broken, but guess what? I watched a YouTube video and come see, I totally unclogged the sink by myself. And I called the dishwasher repairman. He's coming out tomorrow at 2 o'clock and he's going to give us a discount. Now come in and enjoy our family with us, right? Which way do you want to show up in your marriage? You get to decide. Now, another way that this can be useful is to kind of re-examine a situation. So what if your husband leaves his socks all over the house all the time and it absolutely drives you crazy? Now, you can be super frustrated and naggy and constantly be nagging at your husband to pick up his socks and be frustrated every single time you have to do it. Or you can be like, hey, I'm going to rewrite this story. How else could I think about this? Well, maybe my husband works really, really hard and he comes home from work and he just takes his shoes and socks off and leaves them on the ground. I can choose to think of that as a way I can serve him. So you know what? He does a ton for our family. This is one small way that I can show my love and appreciation is by picking up his shoes and socks. So instead of being frustrated every time you do it, you can think, this is a way I can serve my husband and feel love. Now, let's suppose you don't want to pick up the socks. What if you have a toddler and toddlers love games? You could be like, okay, we'll play a game every day that I'll send my toddler around the house to pick up as many pairs of socks as he can find. And when he brings them to me, he can exchange them for a treat. So that's a creative way you can solve that problem once you release the idea that you have to change your husband and make him pick up his own socks. So that's number 2. Number 3 is to learn as much as you possibly can about your spouse's personality type and love language. One personality test that I'm very familiar with is the Enneagram, and you can find free copies of the Enneagram on lots of different websites. But once you learn your husband's Enneagram type, you will get a ton of insight into their core fears and motivations, what drives them, how they like to communicate. And so once you learn your Enneagram type and your husband's Enneagram type, it'll totally revolutionize the way you have conversations. He'll come home and tell you a story about what happened at work, and you can respond in a way that makes him go, oh my gosh, she totally listens. She gets it. She gets me. It's really amazing the way that works. Also, your love language is such an important part of your marriage. So even if you've been married for 35 years and you feel like you know everything possible about your spouse, love language is often get misinterpreted or they change over time. So there's never a bad time to do this experiment. I've created a 5 love language experiment that you can download off my website, or you can just do it yourself. You learn the 5 love languages. You spend one day every day for 5 days on a different love language. And then at the end of that, you just ask your spouse, did I do anything this week that really made you feel loved or that you really enjoyed? Let them tell you, and that will probably give you a really good insight into what their love language is. And even if their love language doesn't come naturally to you, imagine how much more appreciated that will be if your husband knows that you're not a gift giver, but that's his love language and you make an effort to give gifts. Now, those types of changes or understandings will most likely be reciprocated. I have a hard time believing that somebody that you loved enough to marry is going to let all of your efforts go completely unnoticed. So they will begin to reciprocate. However, remember that they don't have to reciprocate for you to be happy. Now, all of these things that I just talked about are very simple, but I know they are not easy. It will take practice. There will be a lot of trial and error involved, but I promise you it is worth it. Remember, when you have 0 expectations of each other and no requirements, you can just come together in your life and have so much fun together. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you liked the concepts that I talked about in this presentation, I'm currently working on my signature course, which will be available right around Valentine's Day, and it's called On the Brighter Side of Marriage course. And it will go in depth into each of these things along with so many other marriage tips and tricks and important principles. You can find out more about that. I love to hang out on Instagram. You can find me at MoniTanner1, or you can look up my podcast at onthebrightersideoflife.com, where you can find more information about my summits, my courses, and my podcast. So thanks again for having me, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.